Here we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Swartwood here. Tonight, I am joined by a USA Today best-selling author of over a dozen novels, whose most recent novel includes the instant bestseller "We Were Never Here." That's right, it's your favorite writer and mine, Kaira Rouda. Kara, did I say that correctly?
You said it right. Way to go. I know it's
Because
not
then
an
I
easy name.
because then I got it stuck in my head. So, all right. Well, how the heck are you? Thank you for making time here.
I'm great. I'm great. But I will point out that you did say we were never here, and the book is We Were Never
God
Friends.
damn it.
You were
I
focusing on my
apologize. It
name.
is. This is. We were never friends. I'm so sorry. It's hard though, because you've written so many books that I'm sure sometimes maybe you get, I don't know if that was in there, but we're here to talk about all your books. I always try, especially when I talk to writers, try to like was writing was that the ultimate goal? Like was that the dream from a very young, girl, or was this something that kind of came later in life?
Yeah, this was, I mean, the earliest I remember it being a dream was in third grade. And I know that because our teacher asked us to write to the person we wanted to be when we grew up. And so I wrote to Robert McCloskey of Make Way for Ducklings and Blueberries for Sal fame. And he actually wrote me back and said, Dear Kara, thank you for your letter. I'm actually an illustrator, not an author, so pick better next time. So that's the kind of way of the publishing business, right? He wrote back, which was great. I picked wrong, which was, terrible. But anyway, between third grade and when I published my first novel, there was a lot of other life things that went on.
So is there anything specifically that was kind of more of an like do you remember the very first creative thing you had done, whether it be story, poem, drawing, anything like that?
You mean as a kid?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember in fifth grade, my librarian, Mrs. Gardier, laminated my first book that I wrote and illustrated. It was called Scooter and Skipper's Adventures. And that was amazing. I remember having the little thing in the back where people could check it out. And, just seeing it on the shelf was a big highlight. I was a big Emily Dickinson poetry fan. So during middle school and those kind of years, I remember writing poetry all the time. I loved writing poetry. And that actually went away. I forgot about that love until recently. I'm getting my MFA in creative writing, and I've been doing a cross class in poetry, and that's brought all of that back. But I hadn't done any poetry until recently. And then probably I was too shy to write for publication like all through high school. I always had a diary and a journal and that kind of thing, but nothing to share with people. And I didn't have my first byline. I was an English major, but English lit. Didn't have my first byline until after college at my first magazine job. And that was the first time I kind of wrote for publication.
Do you still have that book from fifth grade?
No, because it was in the library. But I do, a great end of story for that particular moment was Mrs. Gardier was the librarian forever at Burbank Elementary School. And then she moved to a different one when Burbank closed. And I don't know what happened to the books, but Mrs. Gardier won the highest librarian designation in the district. And I got to write a letter endorsing her award for the Golden Apple Award. And I mean, it's people like that who touch your life as a kid that you never forget, when they do those kind of things, and especially helping inspire you to be what you want to be.
Yeah. So, from what I can tell based on your website, because I always try to do the minimal amount of research for these types of things, because it's better for just a general conversation. Your very first novel, was that Here, Home, Hope?
It certainly was.
Now,
And
was
that
that your first published novel or your first novel?
So interesting. My first two novels are in a drawer someplace, as they're known to be. So that was my first novel that I sat down. Okay, so I was in marketing and business for a long time, and at the end of a career where I helped create a residential real estate brand called Real Living, which was the first real estate brand to acknowledge that women make or control 93% of all real estate decisions. And back in the 2000s, that was a breakthrough notion. So, kind of changing an industry. And I was asked to write a book for Wiley about that process and kind of working with women entrepreneurs across the country. So my first book became a nonfiction book called Really You Incorporated: 8 Essentials for Women Entrepreneurs, which I never wanted to write a business book. And after I wrote the book, then they say to you, oh, now can you go speak around the country about the book? I'm like, everything I know is in the book. Just go read the book. But alas, you have to go speak around the country. So I was. And so I went on tour, and I was in Austin, Texas at a at a women's expo. And I was talking about how it's never too late to live the life of your dreams, and it's up to you to put your passion into action. And I got a question from the audience, and a woman said, "So have you done it all? Have you done everything that you want to do?" And I'm like, I want to write a novel. I really, really want to get a novel published. And she's like, "What are you waiting for?" I'm like, you know what? You are so right. So I went home and wrote, and it was the first novel that I sat down and said, okay, I'm going to make this something that gets published. This is going to not be in my drawer. This is going to be something I'm going to try. So that's where Here Home Hope came from.
Okay, but if I'm understanding that correctly, had you written two other novels previously?
Yes, but
Okay. Were
they were just
those
practice. Yeah.
okay, but what genre were those? Because from what I can tell, just based on at least the cover, like Here Home Hope is not a suspense thriller, right?
Correct, correct. Yeah. My early work is most all, yes, women's fiction is what they call it, which all fiction is really for women. But anyway, they call it women's fiction, tragically. So Here Home Hope is about a mom who has a midlife crisis, and she actually puts into action a lot of the steps in my business book. My agent wanted me to be kind of have a nod to the nonfiction book and put a lot of those principles into Here Home Hope. So my protagonist, Kelly, makes the things to change list, which are similar to kind of the concepts in Really Incorporated. But yes, it does not have murder.
I want to go back to the business book. So this is fascinating. So, because a lot of times, people have to chase after the opportunity to write any type of book. And here, this was just kind of presented to you, correct?
It was crazy. It's a crazy story. So I'm running this business, and had grown to 22 states. So it got really big. And it's my husband and I doing this. And like I said, I was in charge of the brand. And I did a speech, I think, at the American Marketing Association. So they said to me, can you write a marketing booklet for us for women entrepreneurs? So I sat down and kind of like sketched something out. And at the same time, I happened to be talking to an agent actually out of Boston. And she's like, well, what are you working on? Like, I'm doing this outline for the American Marketing Association. She's like, well, why don't we sell that? And I'm like, all right, I don't know, maybe we can. And so I actually sent it to, and that was not my agent, it was just an agent. And so I sent this proposal that I'd done for the AMA to an agent, a different agent, because I wasn't represented by this person, and the publisher at the same time. And Wiley, like, and you're not allowed to do that. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to do that. And this was back when it was like snail mail and everything. And I got a call from both of them on the same day. Like the minute they read it, they both wanted it. Luckily, the agent called first, said, "You cannot talk to a publisher without representation." So I ended up. It was lucky they came in that order. So yeah, so that never happens, to your point. And all of a sudden, and I actually never really wanted to write a business book. So all of that was just kind of happenstance, but it turned out the way it was supposed to. And I'm glad I did. I had a great opportunity to meet so many amazing women entrepreneurs, and writing the book allowed me to meet even more, because I did profiles of these amazing women inside the novel, inside the book too. So it was all
Yeah,
great.
like what type of, I mean, it's obviously not easy to write a novel, but at least for me, you have chapter one, chapter two, and there's,
Yeah.
a business book though. Like, had you read other business books? I mean, like, how does one approach just writing a business book?
Yeah, I'm not a big business book reader. I mean, I grew up in a household with a dad who was a business professor, so he wrote the business books. So, I was accustomed to that output coming from him. But on my side of the world, like I said, I was always the fiction writer, and I just approached it. I mean, again, I didn't really have a notion of how to do it. I just kind of figured out, like, when I was speaking to women entrepreneurs about what was important about your personal brand and how it relates to your business brand, I kind of came up with the process. So I just followed those process, and it all starts with you, and then your passions and your personal brand, and defining your personal brand, and then you extend that to whatever company you're working for or with, whether it's your own company or inside a brand. Like for Real Living, when we were the real estate brand that was finally acknowledging women at the heart of all the transactions, it was important for us to explain like how, whether you're a man or a woman, how that personal brand can be an authentic, all the real estate agents in the world, how can you make yourself stand out and then attach yourself to our brand? So it really is an 8-step process. So that helped with structure.
Yeah. So you had written two other novels that these were, quote unquote, women's fiction novels as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what we would call them. Yeah.
Did you was that what you were reading at the time? Or I guess my question is at what point, because there's a lot of other authors who have dabbled in other genres and I always find that most times writers they eventually end up going to whatever they're really passionate about. Like
Yeah.
sometimes, certain writers might start in like writing horror and they write crime or they write crime, but then they go to horror or just sci-fi or whatever else. So like were you reading any type of like quote unquote suspense crime type things at that point? I mean, I guess like when did you start making that transition from quote unquote women's fiction to more suspense, thriller, psychological?
Yeah, I've always been a fan of suspense and thrillers. So I've always been a big reader, like of everything. But Nancy Drew, and I love Murder She Wrote, and like Daylight. Like all of that stuff is very intriguing to me. In Cold Blood still terrifies me. I mean, there's just all that stuff that you read growing up, and I think one of my most formative memories of reading something in this genre was when I read The Lottery. And I can still remember like the desk where I was sitting and like just as it unfolded, just oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening, in the way to build suspense in just such small way. Anyway, so I know that I was probably destined to always be in this space, but as I said, my first agent said, why don't you write something that's similar to your inspirational messages and really incorporated? So that's how I got into a happier space, I'd say, in the women's fiction, more inspirational. But then I found with each book, I just got darker and darker and darker. So even though they were considered women's fiction, I'd say I started crossing over the line with the book called The Goodbye Year. And then Paul Strom, A Best Day Ever, popped into my head, and I was off to the dark side.
And has your writing process at all changed over the course of since the very first novel, the very first published novel? I mean, obviously, I guess when you're writing a business book, it's completely different from when you're writing a novel. Like, are you somebody who, and I always hate the term, but I have to use it, like, are you someone who like is a plotter, pantser, or is it like a hybrid of those? And has that changed over the course of, a dozen plus books?
Yeah, I am a pantser. I'm firmly a pantser. So I can hear that you are too. And I just, yeah, I'm stuck there. I don't really want to grow to become a plotter. And I did learn recently in a collaboration effort that you have to kind of be able to communicate where you're going when you have more than one author on a project. But me, left to my own devices, I'm definitely just a pantser. And I just love sitting down with no idea where the story is going to go and have the characters just lead me there. It's awesome.
Do you though, and maybe not all the time, but do you sometimes have an idea of where you go? I always go back to the Harlan Coben where it's like, because he's also somebody who, sits down and he doesn't really know what's going to happen in the book, but he usually kind of knows like where he's going to go. He says it's like a cross country, at least for him, it's a cross country trip. He knows he's starting on the East Coast in Jersey. He's going to end up in California. How he gets there, who he's going to encounter on the way, what's going to happen. Like it's up for, but he kind of has at least an endpoint. Do you kind of usually have an endpoint in mind, or is it like very vague and does it change?
Yeah, not usually. For me, it's more about a character will pop into my head, and then if they're pretty talkative, then I know that that is probably a character for my next book. A character and the setting will pop into my head. For We Were Never Friends, Palm Springs popped into my head right after Beth arrived, so I knew that Beth and Palm Springs were going to have something to do with each other. And then usually a title comes to my mind, and then I can usually start writing from there. But I don't know. I don't know the end.
Yeah. And so I mean, a good number of your books, I said, like I guess, are like more like first person.
Yes.
which is very common for this genre, obviously. But when you're writing with different well, we'll go to this one. There are different like characters. Like, do you? I guess when you're starting a book, do you have one specific character that you want to focus on, or do you kind of know, like, okay, this book is going to probably be three different narrators or two different narrators? And again, does that change maybe as you're writing it? I guess, like, have you ever gotten like 50 pages in? And because that is always the concern, one of the issues of being a pantser, where you might then all of a sudden, like it happened to one of my books where it was like I ended up having to rewrite the last third of the novel just because it really went into, in retrospect, I obviously was wrong, but like my initial, thing was to go this way, where really it probably should have went this way instead. Do you ever find that happening?
Yeah, I don't, not so far. I mean, I guess maybe my characters have helped get me out of corners that I didn't know that I was getting into. But with this book, with We Were Never Friends, I didn't know. I knew, like I said, I knew Beth, my protagonist. I knew she had a daughter that was getting married. I have four kids, two are married and one's engaged. So it's been the wedding season over here. And then so that was kind of in my head. And I knew that her daughter was marrying somebody from her past son. So that would have to bring them together. And so when the story opens, Beth and her daughter Celeste are driving out to Palm Springs, and Beth's dreading it, and Celeste is excited because she's engaged. And that led me to Roxy, the queen bee, who is hosting this reunion of former sorority college friends, and none of them want to get back together again. They're only forced to get back together again because Beth's daughter is marrying Roxy's son. So that kind of, I knew those, so I had those four characters. And then as the story kind of unfolded in my imagination, after Beth and Celeste arrived, the doorbell would ring and Roxy would open it. And I'm like, oh, wow, here's another character. And so Amelia showed up, and she wasn't even invited. And then she brought a plus one. And then Jamie, who's really shy as a character to write, she would keep hiding from me. I'm like, wait, I would keep track of who's been having a point of view. And I'm like, wait, where did Jamie go? So I'd have to like drag her to the forefront. So it kind of unfolded like that. The doorbell would ring and I'd have another character. And then, the house is full. Time to have the story go on.
When you're juggling a lot of different characters like that, it always kind of fascinates me sometimes where some writers are able to just kind of keep those straight in their heads, or like, do you try to keep a character list? I mean, how are you able to just maintain these characters throughout the entire book? And especially when you're writing this is the characters are all was it first person?
They're all first
Person?
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
are you trying to kind of make sure every character has their own distinct voice, or is it more just kind of like you let the story go and just like as the characters, their actions and whatever else kind of help sets them apart? Or is that something you don't really kind of maybe think about in the, as you're writing, and kind of maybe that comes back later through the editing process?
Yeah, I don't think about it while I'm writing because I'm inside that character. So whoever's on stage, first to say, is who I'm inside, and they have a very distinct voice, presence, way of being in a room or with other people. So usually I just kind of let them roll. And the biggest editorial letter note that I get is that I haven't established like their backstory enough, because I tend to start my story and just keep going like really fast, and I'll have it over a weekend or over 24 hours, or a set kind of time frame, so everything seems to need to rush. And so that's my biggest task when I go back for the editorial, is to go back and flesh out backstory and some character arcs, those kind of things that maybe my characters don't care about when they're busy living their story.
Yeah. Um, when you are, I mean, you have produced a lot of books, it feels like, in a short amount of time. I don't know why. Like when did you have, I guess let's go back. When did Hear Home Hope come out?
It came out in 2011. And then I had, let's see, All the Difference and In the Mirror. And then Goodbye Year. And then I did have a 2 year stint when I did romance. One of my friends started a romance imprint. So I did two romance series, and that was fun. But I realized that was not where I'm supposed to stick. And then I was back to women's fiction. And I was, but good by year, like I had mentioned before, it started to get a little dark. I was writing like a outline, which I hate, for my agent at the time for a women's fiction series. She's like, just do a series. This will be great. And I'm like, okay. And that's when Paul from Best Day Ever jumped into my head. And that book came out really fast and it was really fun to write. And then my agent said, oh, I don't read those kind of books. I don't read the suspense stuff. So sorry. I'm like, oh no, this could be a problem because I really need you to read it. And anyway, eventually she read it and sold it. And that was 2017. So that was kind of when I made my pivot to the dark side, as I'll say officially. And then, yeah, so since 2017, it's been all these guys back here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we're coming up on, I guess, well, now it's like nine years. And so because I know, because I feel like the one that you had come out last year, Jill is not happy,
Still
and
not
then
happy.
this just came out, and then when's your next one coming out? I feel like don't you have another one coming out?
Yeah, so I have a collaboration with the Killer
Well,
on Book
hell,
Club.
hold on the collaboration.
Okay.
I want to get to
All right.
that in a
Okay.
little bit.
So
So look,
my
yeah.
next standalone is called It's Always the Sister, and it's got a pub date somewhere between April and July. I think they haven't given me the so next year. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So that is at least next year. Well,
Yeah,
that
so
gives
it's
you a little breathing room, I guess. So, well,
I
okay. So let's
know.
talk about a little bit the actual writing process. So, being a pantser, when
Mhm.
you are sitting down, like what's a typical writing day for you? Are you happy with some writers are happy just getting a page written. Some people want to get a chapter written. Some people want to get like, 2,000 words. I mean, is there like, do you have a specific target in mind or just a couple paragraphs is good enough?
I don't usually have a target in mind, but these days I love it if I could come. My office is upstairs. If I can come up here at like 1 o'clock and be finished with like the business of book writing and kind of just sit down and write. And if it's flowing, I mean, I'm not one that kind of counts a word count or anything, but I mean, I could stay up here from 1 to 8 p.m. if I didn't have other stuff to do. It's just so fun when it gets flowing like that. And then other days, I mean, obviously, not every day your muse is going to want to do that. So other days it's a lot shorter. But and right now on book tour, it's like my character. I have a character like right here, and she wants to, but I just don't have time. Like I can't really give that time right now. So that's kind of bad too. So I guess I'm not as structured as a lot of people are. So I'm really bad at craft questions, like giving
No,
any
no, that's
advice.
okay.
It's
That's
terrible.
okay. I mean, every
Terrible.
writer's different. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of the great part about it. Okay, so like when you're on tour, so like on the plane, you're not like trying to
Oh
like,
yeah, if I have a big
do
plane flight,
anything.
yeah, I would be writing on a plane. I love writing on a plane as long as it's long enough. Like it turned out, my book tour so far has been like short stops, like not long enough where I can really get the laptop out and start writing. Because I
Yeah.
can't write on like the takeoff and the landing. So you have to have that,
Yeah. It
you
has to
know,
be nice and yeah.
yeah, still, still as possible right now. Yeah. So yeah, but I love airplane writing. Yeah, but I can't. I'm not a coffee shop writer. I'm not a restaurant writer. If anybody's talking or anything, all of those words just come into my head and go right onto the page. It's some kind of subconscious thing. I think from being a reporter and like eavesdropping on people, but everything would just go right in. So it has to be quiet.
Yeah. Well, so a novel like this is what, 60, 70,000 words
Yeah,
thereabouts?
probably. Yep.
How long, the initial draft, do you remember like a first draft? How long does it typically take you from start to finish, at least for like a first draft on
First draft.
average?
Yeah. I mean,
And
on
I'm sure
average,
that
maybe.
probably changes book to book, but
Yeah, it does. Yeah, 3 to 4 months, I would say.
okay.
I mean, if it's really flowing, it could be faster, but then I don't want to jinx myself and say that happens all the time because it really doesn't. But yeah.
Yeah. And then do you like before you like do you try to go back through it? Or I guess here's a question. Do you sit down and kind of like edit as you go, like read back what you had written the day before you start, or you just kind of Nora Roberts like vomit draft it, for the first draft and then go back and then kind of clean everything up.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in just getting the first draft done. Just go through, get it done, get it in there. Yeah. And if my characters are speaking to me and everything's flowing, then there's nothing better than that, just going all the way through. So I don't go back and read like yesterday's stuff, and then yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the collaboration, but before we get to that, let's talk about, I guess, how that collaboration came about. So, can you talk a little bit about the Killer Author Club? Like,
Sure.
how did you and your two co-founder hosts, like, how did you guys come about this?
Yeah, it was funny because it was my I had my second book coming out. So my I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do to market this? And it was ironically titled Somebody's Home. And we're all stuck at home. So she's sitting right back there behind me. And she's a pouty woman on the cover. I'm like, I know, I'm sorry, pouty woman. This is a tragic situation for both of us. So I just kind of looked online and I was trying to figure out if there are any other people that I knew who had books coming out around the same time. So I had met Heather was one of the first people that I met when I made the switch to the dark side. And she actually was the first person that asked me if I wanted to have lunch at VoucherCon, and I didn't know a soul. And it was so nice. She was so welcoming. So I looked and she had a book coming out. So I wrote to her and I'm like, do you want to do something a little different? And Kimberly the same way. I'm like, how about getting together and doing a show about killing of the fictional kind, of course. And so I kind of like outlined what I was thinking, and I had the title Killer Author Club kind of on the back of my head. And so they both said yes, and we just took off running from there. And that was in 2022, and we've been going strong ever since.
And how often do you guys, is it weekly you're doing
It's every
using it?
other Tuesday. And
Every other
then we
Tuesday.
now added a podcast that comes out every other Friday, which is the show plus secret postmortem content that's only for the podcast.
And okay, so then at what point, excuse me, at what point did you guys decide, you know what? We're not already busy enough with our own
We
books and the
have
podcast and
enough
everything
to do.
else. We should collaborate on a novel. Yeah, like how did that come about?
And I got to figure that out because, I mean, I thought it would be fun, but I don't know if I'm the one that made them do that or if I'm not sure. But I know Kimberly had already collaborated for her Desperate Deadly Widows and Young Rich Widows. And so she kind of knew how that whole thing worked as far as collaboration goes. And we went on our first Killer Author Club book tour last year. And I think that's when we really started thinking about it. Like maybe we could do this and we could write a book together and make it a little bit different than what we all write currently. So it does have a little speculative element to it, which is fun and also terrifying. It's not where I'm used to, but so we've been just kind of that's what we did. And then we sat down and brainstormed and we had to plot a little bit, which is painful for me, but necessary when you're collaborating. And then we pitched it to our agents and they liked it. And then next thing you know, we sold it. And yes, it's coming out, we think next January, well, sometime next winter. And it's called Take Back the Night.
And when I talked to Kimberly and Kara about the collaboration process, I think Kara had mentioned like were you using spreadsheets?
Oh yeah. So okay.
Because I
So
remember
this
Kimberly said like somehow they were using like I still don't understand how it works. Can you
okay.
can you explain how it's
It's very difficult. Okay, well, I mean, for me, for a pantser, it's very difficult. Okay, so Kimberly's used to like spreadsheets and character Bibles and outlines that are like 50 pages. No, I don't know how long your outlines are, but long. Like she's got the whole thing fully outlined before she writes a book. Me, on the other hand, my characters are like, holy moly, if I tell you that, they're going to just run away and go to somebody else's story. So it was a matter. And then Heather's kind of in the middle between, but she used to be a pantser and now she's like being a trader and moving over the plotter side. So yeah, so it involved all these spreadsheets. And then once we had each of us has a character who they were all former college friends, and then something terrible happened on college campus and they're back living their own lives. My character's in California, Kimberly's is in Atlanta, and Heather's are in Iowa, which is where we all live, so that worked out. And yeah, so they have to come back together to like stop the bad guy that they thought they stopped back in college. So once we had our own characters, I think that helped me more. But every time we move on, so we'd write like 3 chapters each and then have a Zoom call, make sure the stories are lining up and all that. And then you have to go into the darn spreadsheet and put in your next chapter or two, and I don't know how to wrap text. I was like moving cells around and everything's going haywire. Kimberly's like, stay out of there. I'll do it. Just give me a Word document. Oh my gosh. So, it wasn't seamless, but we made it to the end. And now we're on our second round edits, which is great. And yeah, it's been really fun, actually.
And so for the characters, I mean, maybe I'm assuming wrong here, but with the three of you, are your characters all like first person
Yeah,
or are they third person? I mean, like,
they're all first person.
so
Yeah.
this is interesting. So then have you guys, because I don't want to spend too much time on this, because obviously we wanted to talk about the new book that's just out,
Yes. Oh my
but
gosh. We were never friends.
are you like, because obviously all three of you have your own writing styles.
Correct.
So have you I guess during this editing process is the idea to try to make sure or because each of you have written like, your own characters, like that character has your writing style, like, like I guess you're like no one's really concerned about trying to make sure everything's kind of like meshed together, if that makes sense. Because like like in when like Jeff Wilson and Brian Andrews, they do their Andrews and Wilson books, like they have their own kind of writing styles, but they know that when they're writing together, they're somehow able to kind of like mesh things. I mean, like how did that work in terms of like, are you reading Kimberly's and Heather's chapters and like are you making notes or is like vice versa? Or like how did that kind of go about?
Yeah, we do. We read each other's things. And I think when my character is speaking within Kimberly or Heather's chapter, then my job is to make sure my character sounds like me in their, so you have continuity of voice no matter who's writing the chapter, if that makes sense. So I kind of look for that. And the other thing that we've been really, it's tough is timeline, like time of day and everything, because, when you're writing in your imagination, you have a certain time and setting, and you might forget that the person in the chapter before had just gone to bed or something. It just has to line up sequentially. It doesn't have to be exact, but that's the kind of stuff that we have to watch when we're writing. And yeah, it's actually been pretty seamless. I mean, I'm assuming that our editor, who's amazing, is the one that's going to make sure our voices don't sound like scattered. But I mean, to me, but I'm really close to it. To me, it seems like it's flowing really well. We shall
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
And I saw the Publishers Marketplace has it listed as, or I guess it was pitched as, I Know What You Did Last Summer meets Listen for the Lie.
Yeah.
Um, who came up with that pitch?
That was well, okay. So there's three of us and our three agents. So that was a collaboration for sure. And there are elements in the story when the women were in college, they had a radio show, and that's what helped them out the bad guy and kind of help find him. So there's a lot, and then there's a contemporary kind of a Netflix play that's going on too. So that there are like kind of those listen for the lie elements in that sense.
Okay, so is it like, are there like, is the book going to include like kind of like transcripts of podcast or document? You know what I mean? Like how kind of like
Yes.
how Listen for the Lie was, and
Yes. Not as heavily reliant on that, but definitely that's an element for sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so we kind of got into this a little bit, but can you talk a little bit more, just kind of like the elevator pitch for this, and then kind of like what the inspiration was specifically for when we were never friends. Again, that we were never friends. That is the title.
That is the title. We Were Never Friends. Okay, We Were Never Friends is about a group of former sorority sisters who went to Palm Springs for spring break their senior year, and something tragic happened. And so since then, they've really lost touch. They haven't seen each other, been together. But unfortunately for all of them, probably, Beth's daughter Celeste has become engaged to Roxy, who is the queen bee's son. And Roxy, being Roxy, Roxy's one of those characters who she's just over the top, and she has just redone her fabulous second home in Palm Springs, and she can't wait to show it all off to her former sorority sisters. So she invites them all for an engagement reunion weekend, and so they are all kind of compelled to go. So there is Beth and her daughter, and then Roxy and her son, and then we also meet Amelia, who wasn't invited. She's kind of the pot stirrer from college. And she not only was invited, but she also brings a plus one. And so she's thrown into the mix. Jamie, who's a famous cardiologist now, she comes also reluctantly with her husband. So they all descend upon Roxy's mansion in Palm Springs, fabulous movie colony, home of so many secrets. And then bad things happen again because the past really doesn't want to stay in the past.
And so this came out now. How many weeks has it been? Because I know that was on USA Today bestseller list, which congratulations,
Thank you.
twice. So
Twice.
so this
Yeah.
is just came out recently, correct?
Yes. It came out February 3rd, and I've been on tour since then. So I think it's about 3 weeks, something like that, right? Yeah.
Do you have any good tour stories? Have you were you ever at a tour? Because I feel like this happens for every writer, where like no one shows up. Has it ever happened to you?
You mean on this tour? Of
Well, no,
course.
no,
Like
no, no. I'm
I've
sure at
had
this point, I'm
every,
sure you
no,
have a there's huge crowds for you now. But I mean, usually,
but
like a lot of writers when they're starting out, like I remember reading a story like Grady Hendrix talked about how he had like driven like I don't know, he said like 5 hours to go to a bookstore, and I think like one person showed up. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things, especially when you're starting out. It's all about the hustle. Like, I don't know, like I don't know. I was just thinking, like, you tour a lot. Have you ever had any or really exciting? Because I think you were just at the what was it called? The creepy retreat
The creepy
thing.
book retreat. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is a great event, and that was actually our second time there. They invited the first year. Killer Author Club wasn't a part of it. The subsequent 2 years, they include us. So Heather and I kind of did a live show during the creepy author retreat, and it was so fun. That's um, that's a great example of when being an author and getting to interface with readers is just so meaningful because all of these people that are there and they all descended upon Scottsdale and we did too are there because they want to hang out with friends and read thriller books. It's like the best. It's the best of all worlds and having a chance to meet everybody and I don't know. It was a really great event and really I feel like kind of rare to get that many people together that love the same kind of stories and really celebrate and fabulous other authors. Because usually, to your point, being on tour means you're pretty much by yourself hoping for the best, right? So you just don't know like if the weather's going to turn on you or if there's on this tour I had Super Bowl Sunday during one of my events. So that's never
Ooh.
a good thing. Yeah. And you just don't know. And people get busy, people are busy. So to fit in going to a book event, it's harder and harder to get people to come out in person. So thank you to everybody who did, which was really appreciative. Going to South Carolina next week. So hopefully people in South Carolina will be there too, but you just never know. And I think I've learned, and everyone who is an author should just know this, it's not personal. It's just circumstances, there are things beyond your control and you just kind of have to like make the best of it and move on to the next event.
Yeah. So you said South Carolina. Yeah. Can you like
Yeah.
what places do you have coming up?
So tomorrow night, I'm here in my hometown bookstore, Laguna Beach Books, which is great. And then I have Book Carnival. I don't know if you've heard of that. That is a famous bookstore in Tustin. And that is on Sunday. I love to see Anne. And then I'm really excited. I've never been to the Litchfield Author Luncheon in South Carolina, and that's next week, and a few other stops that are on my website. But yeah, I think it's at Hendersonville and Spartanburg. So, like a lot of different places in South Carolina,
It's really
which will be fun.
exciting.
Yeah.
Um, do you um do you read your work aloud? You know what I mean? Like when you're editing, like is that something? Because sometimes I find that some writers do that, some writers don't. I know you with this recent book, you have some really great narrators
Oh my gosh, aren't they great?
included with this. So like, are you an audiobook fan?
I am, and you know what's amazing about this, and they're doing it more and more. So they call it a full cast, and
Mhm.
every single point of view character has a narrator, and I got to listen to them before they, came, and they just bring the story to life. It's so great. So yes, I'm a huge audiobook fan, and I personally don't read my book aloud to myself. Kimberly and Heather both do, I've learned during this collaboration. So maybe I'll learn. I don't know. I'm trying to learn new tricks, but I'm sure it is a good idea, especially in the audiobook heavy time that we're in, to write with an ear to that. So I think it's really important, and that's something I should probably learn to do. Mhm.
Well, how about though, like, so personally for me, I've been going through like the whole copy edit proofread stage, and I don't know if it's OCD or what, but like I always just want to like go through the manuscript at least one more time. You know, like I always try to push to have like just kind of just go through it one more time because I always feel like
Yeah.
I'm always going to find something. And then that's usually when something is published. I never want to look at it because I'm always going to find something. I'm like, I should have like I don't know, like when you're doing the whole revision, the whole editorial process, are you somebody who can easily let go, or is it something where you just want to kind of keep tinkering?
I like to let go. I do. I mean, not, you know, I mean, I'm one of those people where I get that editorial letter and I'm like, oh man, I can't believe it's not perfect. This stinks, you know. And then I've learned that it's actually a gift and that everyone's trying to make the book better. So I've grown up that way. But yes, I cannot wait to turn it in again. Yeah, I don't have that compulsive gene to make it perfect. Although I think it's very admirable and kudos to you for doing that. I just find that there's always going to be something,
Yeah.
and also they have copy editors and proofreaders. They're really good at that.
They are good, but I always find stuff after the fact.
If you're
Sometimes
looking for,
get missed. I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe that's just me. Maybe I always have had bad luck. So going back to the podcast that you, Heather and Kimberly do,
yeah.
again, as if you guys were not busy enough with everything else going on. Um, do you find, at least for me, the reason I started kind of doing this live stream was because at the time I started having to have a book come out, and they always want to book you to doing Zooms, and I was like, okay, well, this would be good to kind of just get into the rhythm of talking to people on a Zoom because usually you're always going to be on
Right.
Zoom. Plus, I just really enjoy talking to other writers and talking about crafts and just kind of talking shop. But I don't know, like have you found like has this, I don't know, like has it affected your writing, your work in any way, having done, so much podcasting since you started?
You know, I don't know about my work. I would say it's been so fabulous to meet so many authors. I mean, I would never have had the opportunity to sit down and talk like you and I are with all of these people who've been on the show. And that's been such a blessing. And I guess when we started it, it was more, I was thinking it was more a publicity thing because my background's marketing and I'm just trying to figure out how to sell somebody's home or get anybody to read somebody's home. And now it's morphed into this place where I get to meet these fabulous authors, hear a little bit about their stories, their personal stories and their books, but also it's created this great friendship too, where Kimberly and Heather and I, when we talk all the time now, and it's really become just a part of my life that I really cherish.
Yeah. When you guys do your like promotional videos for the podcast, like how much time does that take? Like, are there times you get to like do different takes of whatever you're doing?
I know we're all in here over at Killer Author Club. So there's just no telling. Some weeks it's like a lot. And by the way, like when I'm on book tour, as we mentioned, and so they've been covering for me for like, I think I've missed 2 episodes so far, which I hate doing that, but I can't be in 2 places at once. So, it is a lot of work to your point, but we do so far, knock on wood, like it a lot and like each other a lot. So it's been fun.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about titles, coming up with a
Yeah.
title. What have like 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 have you lucked out? Like how often, like what's your ratio been in terms of your title versus where the publisher is like,
There's
no, we want to do that. Or has it been maybe a mixture? Because I mean, there are times too where I've had a book where it's like, even I knew like this was more of a working title, like I'm not in love with it, and okay, we want to go with a different title. That's fine, because whatever else. Where other times it's like, no, I love this. This is what it needs to be,
Yeah.
versus where it's, yeah, like, I don't know, like,
So
have you ever had?
how many of you had stick versus them changing?
Well, I mean, a lot of my earlier stuff was more self-published, so
Mhm.
I could do whatever I want. Although there was one where I then, after the fact, went back and changed the title because I realized, the title I had initially given it. Sometimes, as the author, you don't always know best, even though you might think you do. So I
Right, right.
realized, like, yeah, that wasn't a really good title, so I had to go back and change it. For my Avery Bishop stuff, I mean, my most recent one coming out, they changed the title on me, which I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm learning to just kind of being like, yeah, it's fine. But yeah, it's been pretty. Yeah, I've gotten kind of lucky. My one under my name, The Killing Room. Initially, we shopped it around, but again, I didn't love it. You know what I mean? It was that thing where it was kind of new, like, and then and it was great because then we had a conversation with the editor and publisher, and we kind of bounced ideas. And then what I ended up doing was the title that we made it, I then was in the editing process. So I was able to like incorporate that into the book. So
Oh,
it wasn't
nice.
just like a slapped on title, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
because I remember a friend of mine who had read it like after the fact, I had mentioned that to him. He was like, really? Because he's like, it seems to fit so perfectly. I'm like, yes, because I worked it in.
Because you worked it
Because
in, yeah.
I hate that idea sometimes where it's like, oh, we're just going to put like an arbitrary title on something that like kind of fits, but not really.
Right, right. Yeah. And I kind of go back and forth too. So let's see, like Best Day Ever was my title. Somebody's Home was my title. Jill is Not Happy was not my title, and I love that title. And We Were Never Friends was originally called The Engagement Reunion, and nobody would have read that book.
Yeah,
So,
no, I think you
so
went with the right one on this one.
yeah, yeah. We Were Never Friends is their title, which was great. Thank you, publisher. And Beneath the Surface and Under the Palms are mine. I'm just looking behind me. And yeah, I think The Widow was The Widow's Mandate, but it was my second pandemic book, and everybody was tired of mandates. We just chopped off the
Oh,
word
that's
mandate.
interesting. That's
Yeah,
interesting. So had
yeah,
it been like a
yeah.
different, like a year
Time.
or two beforehand,
Yeah,
maybe interesting.
because the tradition is literally, it's a tradition in DC when a congressman or a senator dies, their spouse will become either appointed by the governor or have a special election to fill their seat. So it's formally known as the widow's mandate, which is what that whole book is about. But it's the widow as far as the title.
Yeah. When it comes to research, I mean, I don't want to get too much into your personal life, but I know with your husband, like when you do, like, do you let research get in the way, or are you someone who likes research, or is it more like I'm just gonna tell a story and then we'll worry about that later if that becomes an issue?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, usually, like I said, it with the widow's mandate. I almost called it with the widow. I that came a character came, like a long time suffering spouse of a 30-year congressman popped into my head, and then the setting, which was DC, because I was there for a while there, and it was fun, and then the title, which was based on a tradition, so the widow's mandate. And really, I that one was funny because I started writing and my husband was in Congress at the time, and he had all these consultants come to town for like a campaign kickoff kind of thing. And he's like, you better tell him about the book. And I'm like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, you better tell him. So I'm like, okay, great job. I mean, great news, you guys. I sold my next book and it's about a cheating congressman. And they're all like,
Oh, I'm sure
what?
they love that.
Yeah, they were super stoked. So anyway, so yeah, so I yeah. But I was really fascinated by the notion, and it's true that most of the women who've served in Congress in the last 100 years were through a dead spouse. So that kind of appealed to me as a suspense author, and we were
Hmm,
off to the races. Yeah, but
fascinating.
anyway, so yeah, titles are an interesting thing too. They really are because they can say so much and add so much, just like the covers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, so the most recent novel, We Were Never Friends, already instant USA Today bestseller. 2 weeks running so far. Hope fingers crossed on the third.
Oh, that's right.
Um,
That's yeah, yeah. That's it's a tough crowd out there. She's happy with 2 weeks. Yeah,
two
that's
weeks
good.
is
Yeah.
great. You know what? There was funny. A friend of mine, as I was looking at the list this was like a year or two ago, and I was looking at the list or whatever else, and I saw a writer friend I knew. His book was on it. And I sent him a message. I was like, dude, congratulations. And then I saw like apparently I guess it had also been like that was like the second or whatever week. And I was like, wow, 2 weeks in a row. It's amazing. He was like, thanks for letting me know. My publisher never told me.
No, really?
It was like you would think somebody, at least in the marketing, would be like monitoring that type of stuff and let them know.
Right.
And it was like, yeah, it's kind of nuts. So I always like to wrap things up with, is there anything that you've read, you've watched, you've listened to, anything that you really enjoy that you would, want to recommend to other people?
Look at me. I'm like looking around my desk. Yeah, I'm on book tour brain. Let's see. Okay, I watched His and Hers, and gosh, I've read so many great books lately, which I've carried around with me. Why don't I have them up here? Oh, All the Little Houses by May Cobb. I really like that book. Darn it. Why am I blanking? Okay, sorry. Yes,
That's
there's so
okay.
much good content out there. Read a thriller, watch a suspense limited series. You can't go wrong. And that's what I have to say about that right now. And I'm really sorry I can't remember my books that I just finished reading.
That's okay. How about in the last year? Was there anything else you really like really stuck out to you? Maybe in 2020, what year is it now? 2025, I guess it would have been. Was there anything like you had like any top reads, any top listens, any top shows from 2025?
You're really pushing me here
Oh,
because
that's okay. That's okay. I don't want
my
to push
brain's
it. I don't
not
want to push
working
it.
like
That's
that at
fine.
the moment. It is like up to here with the yeah, tour brain. But and I just saw all those great authors at the Creepy Book Retreat, so I should just be naming all of them. So yeah, so you should, you should read a book. Oh, I know it's great. So B.A. Paris was at the Creepy Book Retreat, and she was the guest of honor because the two women, Emily and Ashley, who started the retreat, were huge fans. They started reading thrillers and suspense books because of B.A. Paris Behind Closed Doors. Anyway, I too, huge B.A. Paris fan, and her book Behind Closed Doors came out about a year before Best Day Ever came out. And so by the time I was in the Best Day Ever marketing situation out in the world, I got to go to England, and I was in the Agatha Christie garden at the Harrogate conference. Can you believe it? And I was showing my publicist that I had actually accidentally ordered 13 copies of B.A. Paris's next book, and they came right before I left. And so I took a video of myself being like, what the heck did you do? So anyway, so she's like, oh my gosh, you should show her this. And I'm like, show who? And she goes, BA, she's right behind you. I'm like, no. So the publicist like takes my phone and shows BA Paris like my unboxing of 13 of her books. Very embarrassing. But anyway, she's amazing. And she ended up blurbing the cover of my paperback, which for Best Day Ever, which I mean, I hadn't seen her since. So this weekend. So her new one just came out, and it's called When I Kill You, I believe. It's got a black cover with a knife on the front. So I'm about to start that. So there you go. How's that?
And my understanding is there's going to be a sequel to Behind Closed Doors,
Yes,
right? Is
yes, yes.
that
That's
was
the
kind of the
other
big
thing she
news
was
there, right?
talking about.
Yeah.
Right, which that'll be so good too. I mean, it really is a foundational work in this kind of landscape. You know, you've got Gone Girl, you've got Behind Closed. You know, it's great. It's great,
Yeah.
and she's so nice and lovely. So she deserves all the success. She
Very
does not
good.
need me to buy
And
13
then
copies.
if people want to stalk you online, where's the best way to do that?
Yes, please do. I am Kaira Rouda on pretty much every platform, which is a lot of vowels, but it's right down there too. But Kaira Rouda. And that's my website, and that's my Instagram handle. I'm mostly on Instagram, a little bit on Facebook, and yeah, those are my two main places.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, the book is We Were Never Friends. It's available ebook, is paperback and hardcover, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And
Anything,
obviously
anyway,
audiobook. I think we mentioned the
anyway.
audiobook. Who are the narrators again? It was
Oh,
January Lavoie and who else?
yes. We would know that. I just promoted that on my thing.
It's
Hold
okay.
on.
Here, I can look it up now real
You can
quick.
look it up. Okay.
I feel like I
They're
keep putting you on the
fabulous, you guys.
spot. Oh,
You do.
Hillary there.
Yep. You
And
do keep putting
then
me on the spot, but
Kara
you'd think I would know
Sands
these.
and Patricia Santa Masso.
Yeah. And they're great, you guys, if you love audiobooks, which I do. And I just love it when they do a full cast because it just brings it to life with each person's voice and personality. Love it.
Yeah. So, all right, Kara. Again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everyone for tuning in again. most recent book. Go buy it. Make sure so keep her on the bestseller list. So that's what we
Yeah.
want to do. Keep her on the bestseller list.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
and again, check her out on tour. If she's not going to be in your area, she probably will next year because it seems like you're always going to be on tour. So
I'm everywhere. I don't know. Yeah. It's been great being out there.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So again, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye.